127 hours. The canyon walls rose high above Aron Ralston, their jagged red rock formations glowing under the unrelenting Utah sun. The silence of Blue John Canyon was absolute, broken only by the occasional whisper of wind through the crevices. It was April 26, 2003, and Aron was exactly where he wanted to be, alone in the wilderness, testing his endurance against nature. He thrived on adventure, pushing himself beyond limits others feared. As he navigated a narrow passage, his foot slipped slightly on loose gravel. Before he could react, a massive boulder, dislodged by his movement, tumbled down. It happened in an instant. The rock, weighing over 800 pounds, crashed into his right arm, pinning him against the canyon wall. At first, he refused to believe what had happened. He pulled, he pushed, he screamed. But the boulder did not move. His fingers tingled, the circulation cut off by the unyielding pressure. He was trapped.
Day 1. Hope. Aron assessed his situation. He had minimal supplies: a dull multi-tool knife, a bit of climbing gear, a small video camera, and a liter of water. His food consisted of 2 burritos and some candy. He had no cell phone service. No one knew where he was. He took a deep breath. Stay calm, he told himself. Panic would only make things worse. He tried using his climbing gear to create leverage against the boulder, hoping to shift it enough to free his arm. But every effort was futile. The rock was immovable. He rationed his water, taking tiny sips to keep himself hydrated. As night fell, the desert's warmth vanished, replaced by freezing temperatures. He shivered uncontrollably, trapped between pain and the biting cold. Day 2, reality sets in. Morning light brought no salvation. Aron had not slept. His body ached, his arm throbbed, but more than anything, fear gnawed at him. He screamed for help, his voice echoing off the canyon walls, swallowed by the vast emptiness. No one answered. He tried again to free himself, using the dull blade of his multi-tool to chip away at the rock. It was pointless. The boulder was too solid, his tool too weak. He considered amputating his arm. By midday, his thirst was unbearable. He forced himself to drink just a sip of water, resisting the urge to gulp it down. His mind wavered between rational thought and creeping despair. He thought of his family, his friends, the adventures he had yet to experience. Night came again, colder and crueler. He curled in on himself, willing himself to survive. Day 3, hallucinations. Dehydration set in. Aron's thoughts became fragmented. He recorded video messages to his family, apologizing, telling them he loved them. He hallucinated, seeing flashes of people he loved, places he wanted to go. By now, he had run out of food. His water supply was dangerously low. His body was shutting down. Desperation gave way to grim acceptance. If he did not free himself, he would die in this canyon. Day 4, the decision. Aron woke to an eerie sense of clarity. His trapped arm had turned a sickly gray, devoid of sensation. It was dead. He realized that cutting through it was not just possible, it was necessary, but he had no way to cut through the bone. He tested his knife against his skin, pressing down. The blade was dull, and the pain was immediate. He nearly passed out. Then, he had an epiphany. He could break the bones. He positioned his body carefully, using the weight of the boulder and his own strength to apply pressure. With one determined movement, he snapped his radius. The pain was unlike anything he had ever known. Trembling, he repeated the action and broke his... Now, there was only flesh, tendons, and muscle left to cut through. Day 5. Freedom at a cost. With his good hand, he began sawing through his arm. It was slow, excruciating work. He had to stop several times to breathe, to keep from losing consciousness. When he reached the nerves, pain exploded through his body like fire. But he kept going. After what felt like an eternity, his arm was free. He stumbled backward, gasping, the severed limb still trapped beneath the boulder. Adrenaline took over. He wrapped his bleeding stump in a makeshift tourniquet, using whatever he had left in his gear. But he was still miles from help. The journey out. Weakened, bleeding, and dehydrated, Aron rappelled down a 65-foot drop, using only his one remaining arm. Every movement was agony, but he refused to stop. After hours of walking under the scorching sun, his body on the verge of collapse, he spotted a family hiking in the distance. He called out, his voice hoarse and weak. They turned, their faces filled with shock. Help had finally come. Rescue teams arrived, airlifting him to safety. Aron Ralston had survived the impossible. A new life. Aron's journey did not end in Blue John Canyon. He recovered, adapted, and continued his adventures, now with a prosthetic arm. His story became a symbol of resilience, inspiring countless people. He had faced death and won, not because he was lucky, but because he refused to give up.